Alice rushed to the wedding venue, claiming she was the true bride. The bride, Rose, was shocked and resisted, but was eventually dragged out by security. Alice and the groom, Michael, successfully held their wedding, though it drew the displeasure of CO Felix, who saw her as a gold digger interfering in others' relationships. After the wedding, Michael thanked Alice. It turned out they were just friends, and she was only helping him stage an escape from marriage. Just as she was about to leave, she stumbled into Felix's arms. She marveled at how handsome he was, but he pushed her away in disgust, calling her filthy. Alice thought he was inexplicably rude, but didn't argue with him. Felix had been searching for a girl he met in his childhood, a girl with a heart-shaped birthmark on her shoulder. Back then, he was homeless and starving, and she had helped him, bringing him food. They promised to marry when they grew up, but they lost touch and had yet to reunite. Alice crashed her electric motorcycle into Felix's car and fell to the ground. Felix demanded she pay $1 million in damages, but she didn't have that kind of money. She begged him to show mercy, so he suggested she work as a maid in his home to pay off the debt because he would provide her with a salary. Felix took Alice back to his mansion, where the housekeeper gave her a thorough sanitization and had her change into a maid's uniform. However, Felix began to make her life difficult at every turn. Tired of his treatment, Alice tried to escape by climbing over the wall with a ladder, but she lost her footing and fell, fortunately caught by a man who held her in his arms. This man, Jack, was Felix's younger brother, though Alice didn't know this yet. Jack was also Alice's junior in school, and upon learning of her $1 million debt, he invited her to accompany him to a banquet that evening as his female companion, promising to pay her. At the banquet, Alice ran into her nemesis, Rose, who blamed Alice for stealing her fiancé, Michael, and angrily threw red wine at her. But Jack stepped in and shielded Alice from the wine, then demanded Rose leave the banquet immediately. Alice, feeling a bit guilty, quickly took a napkin to help him clean his suit. Just then, Felix happened to see their close interaction. Jack told Alice that Felix was his older brother. CEO then found an excuse to send Jack away, pulled Alice to a corner, and grabbed her by the throat, warning her not to seduce his brother. She thought he was being unreasonable and wanted to leave the banquet, but was stopped by security at the door. The guard reminded her that her debt wasn't cleared, leaving her with no choice but to return to Felix's home. Alice gave Felix a spa treatment, but took the opportunity to scald him with hot water, making him yelp in pain. At a class reunion, Alice ran into Rose, who once again tried to throw wine at her, but Michael shielded Alice. Felix showed up, insisting Alice return home to work. Her classmates mocked her for being a maid, and CEO went even further, demanding she drink the wine on the spot to apologize to their teacher. Alice drank it, but nearly threw up. Felix had secretly added a lot of chili powder to it beforehand. Michael, deeply concerned for her, got into a heated argument with Felix. Michael had been Alice's childhood friend and had secretly loved her for years, so he absolutely would not allow Felix to bully her like this. Later, in the car, Felix grabbed Alice's hand and warned her not to prank him again, but when she blinked her large eyes and acted cute, he suddenly found himself softening. Jack and Alice were sitting on the sofa chatting when Felix saw them, interrupted their conversation, and deliberately sat down between them. The CEO ordered Alice to get back to work, but Jack wasn't happy about it. He told his brother that he had harbored a crush on Alice for a long time and wanted to marry her. Felix, however, firmly told him that was impossible. Jack, feeling sorry for Alice when he saw her about to wash a large pile of clothes, approached her with concern. As they chatted, they began to play around and grew very close. Felix interrupted them again and drove Jack away. Then he gripped Alice's chin, warning her to stay away from his brother or face consequences worse than death. Alice was furious. In the days that followed, she obeyed Felix's orders to the letter but maintained a noticeably cold attitude. Felix found himself feeling a bit frustrated, even missing her previous lively, defiant personality. One day, Felix asked Alice to accompany him on an outing, insisting that she sit in the front seat with him. To give her a hard time, he had her try on dozens of men's outfits. In revenge, Alice put on a wig to disguise herself as a boy, leaning close to him. The passers-by assumed they were a gay couple and started whispering about them. Unexpectedly, Felix didn't shy away. Instead, he wrapped an arm around Alice and called her baby. Alice pretended to cry, accusing him of cheating, so the woman also began to chastise him as a scumbag. Felix chuckled and pulled off her wig. The woman thought they were just a playful couple, admiring their apparent sweetness. Just as Alice was about to explain that they weren't a couple, Felix picked her up and carried her into a fitting room. Coincidentally, Rose happened to pass by and saw them, taking the opportunity to lock the fitting room door and snap photos of them alone together. Alice and Felix found themselves locked in the fitting room, and they started blaming each other, leading to a quarrel. He patted her head, which annoyed her so much that she headbutted him. But her hair accidentally got tangled in his necklace. Just then, the CEO's secretary barged in, seeing them in this close position. He quickly covered his eyes, pretending he hadn't seen anything. Michael asked Alice out and confessed that he had secretly loved her for 10 years. He had seen the candid photos Rose took, capturing the CEO and Alice in an intimate moment, which made him jealous and prompted him to confess. However, Alice only saw Michael as a friend and turned him down. Jack recommended a piano gig to Alice. When she went to the music store for an interview, she ran into Rose. Alice hadn't been studying piano for very long, so Rose assumed her skills must be mediocre. She belittled Alice, not realizing that the famous piano master, Ellie, was standing behind her. Ellie was about to hold a student selection competition at the music store, and Rose had been one of the top candidates. However, Ellie was put off by her rude behavior. The store owner arrived, and he reached out to shake Alice's hand, but Jack got jealous and stopped him. Alice started playing the piano, and Jack was completely mesmerized, unable to take his eyes off her. Her beautiful music also captivated the piano master Ellie, who admired her talent and encouraged her to join the competition. Overhearing their conversation, Rose stormed in, accusing Alice of cheating her way in. But the CEO shouted at her to stop. Alice presented Jack's voice message, proving that she was there only for an interview and had not cheated. Ellie scolded Rose, saying that with such an ugly heart, she could never produce beautiful music. Jack disqualified Rose from the competition. Unrepentant, she clenched her fists and vowed revenge on Alice. Felix had to meet a client for a business deal, so he invited Alice to accompany him. They met the client, Tom, only to find Rose was there too. Felix introduced Alice as his girlfriend, leaving Rose shocked. Rose told Tom that Alice was a promiscuous woman. So Tom cornered Alice in the restroom and tried to harass her, but she punched him, making his nose bleed. Alice reminded Tom that there were security cameras and warned him to behave himself. However, the malicious Rose tricked Alice into a fitting room without surveillance, where Tom came in after her. Alice grabbed a broom and gave him a good beating, but her resistance enraged Tom, and he slapped her. Alice kicked him and escaped. She ran into Felix's arms and pointed to her reddened cheek. Furious, Felix kicked Tom and stomped on his fingers. He then tore up the newly signed contract, refusing to work with such scum. Tom begged for mercy and apologized to Alice, even slapping himself. But Felix refused to forgive him. He picked Alice up and left. Back at home, he accidentally noticed a heart-shaped birthmark on her shoulder. 5 years ago, he had been hunted down by his enemies and was injured, but a masked girl saved him. She showed him a safe escape route, and he saw a heart-shaped birthmark on her shoulder. Realizing he had already fallen for Alice, Felix held her as he fell asleep. When Alice woke up, she screamed in surprise, but Felix pinned her down and kissed her cheek. After that, Alice grew shy whenever she saw him. He ordered her to sit next to him and playfully pinned her down on the sofa. Her hand accidentally unbuttoned his shirt, and he teased her, placing her hand on his collarbone. Alice blushed and ran off, leaving him smiling, his lips tingling from the kiss. Alice lacked the courage to confront him, so she drank to boost her confidence and stumbled into Felix's room. She cupped his face and kissed him, and as he was about to kiss her back, she fell asleep in his arms. The next morning, Alice woke up in Felix's embrace and hurried out of his room, only to bump into Jack. When he asked why she was leaving his brother's room, she lied, saying she was just there to wake Felix up. Jack invited Alice and Felix to go camping, and she agreed. Jack realized that his brother also had feelings for Alice and wanted to punch him. However, Felix stood his ground, declaring that Alice would be his wife. Just then, Michael also arrived. In order to win Alice's heart, Felix and Michael both deliberately injured themselves and then falsely accused Jack, saying he was the one who hit them. Jack acted cute and apologized to Alice, and she couldn't resist his charm, so she ended up scolding Felix and Michael instead. Alice was bitten by a poisonous insect, and all three men scrambled to take care of her. Jack happily took her arm, but Felix, jealous, ordered him to let go. Felix pulled her aside to a quiet spot and demanded to know who she liked. When they argued, Alice nearly fell, but Felix caught her and held her close, twisting his ankle in the process. He confessed his love to her, and she shyly admitted that she liked him too. Felix hugged her and kissed her passionately. The rivals tried to interrupt them, but Felix pouted and demanded a kiss from her. Alice kissed him, breaking Michael and Jack's hearts as they realized they had lost. The next morning, as Alice left her room, Felix pinned her against the wall and gave her a morning kiss. After breakfast, he gently wiped her mouth. The clever secretary started addressing Alice as Madam, making her blush, but Felix was pleased and decided to give the secretary a raise. Missing Alice while at work, Felix found an excuse to have her bring documents to his office. When Alice arrived, she was stopped by a rude receptionist who didn't believe she was the CEO's girlfriend and insulted her. The secretary appeared and addressed Alice as Madam. Upon learning what happened, he fired the disrespectful receptionist. Felix hugged Alice as soon as she stepped into his office, then lifted her onto his desk, cuddling her. Heartbroken, Jack decided to go abroad. Before he left, they gathered at a hotel. Rose ran into them and decided to take revenge on Alice that night. All three men were drunk when a waiter told Alice someone was waiting for her outside. As she left the room, she was knocked out. When she recovered consciousness, she found herself locked in a room with Jack, who was dazed and under the influence of an aphrodisiac that Rose had put in his wine, making him lose control and attempt to approach Alice. To snap him out of it, Alice splashed water on his face and slapped him. Jack regained a bit of clarity. To prevent himself from hurting Alice, he told her to hide in the room, while he went into the bathroom. The secretary brought Rose in, and Felix smashed a wine glass in fury, demanding to know where Alice was. The secretary stepped on Rose's fingers and even cut her face with a glass shard. Rose finally confessed that she had drugged his brother heavily. Enraged, the CEO kicked her down and promised severe punishment. He eventually found Alice and held her, comforting her softly. They found Jack passed out in the bathtub and rushed him to the hospital. Felix and Alice got married, and during the ceremony, he told her that he was the man she had saved 5 years ago. He knelt down on one knee and proposed to her, and they exchanged rings, sealing their love with a passionate kiss.